Hello everyone, and welcome to this special Newsdesk programme, Meet the Author. Today we are joined by local writer Brian Gogarty to talk about his books, The Adventures of Shamrock Sean. I don't know about you, but I'm really looking forward to hearing about what exciting adventures Sean gets up to. Brian, you're very welcome to the studio today, and I'm sure our Newsdesk viewers are very keen to hear about this wonderfully lively leprechaun of yours. What's the first adventure of Sean's that you're going to share with us today?
Well, first of all, Amelia, thank you very much for inviting me along this morning. And the first adventure that Sean ever went on was a story called The Wishing Well, where he actually visits the wishing well. It was a story that I actually made up as a bedtime story for my daughter when she was very small, because what happened was we were at a St Patrick's Day parade in Dublin, and it was a very, very cold, wet day, and my daughter was getting very bored, so we bought her this little leprechaun just to keep her amused. And when we got home that night, she said, "Daddy, what's his name?" So I had to think of a name for him on the spot, and then she said, "And what does he do? What sort of things does he get up to?" And that was whenever I had to make up the story about the wishing well, and it just came, I literally just had to make it up off the top of my head that night. So that was the first story, and that's how it came to be, really.
Would you read us that story today, Brian?
I certainly will, I'd be delighted to. Shamrock Sean and the Wishing Well. Shamrock Sean got out of bed, rubbed his sleepy eyes. He looked out of the window at the clear blue sunny skies. "It's such a lovely day," he said. "I know just what to do. I'll go down to the wishing well and make a wish or two." He ran across the meadow. He ran right through the wood until he reached the wishing well, and next to it he stood. But he couldn't see inside it, for the wishing well is tall. "It's just not fair," said Shamrock Sean. "I'm really far too small." He moved a big square stone, and he stood up on the rim. And then the silly leprechaun leaned over and fell in. He shouted very loudly, "Oh, someone help me, please. I'm here inside the wishing well with water to my knees." He got very cold and hungry in the wishing well so deep. He even tried to climb the walls, but found they were too steep. He waited and he waited. Oh, it seemed like hours and hours. Then suddenly he remembered the wishing well's great powers. Shamrock Sean closed his eyes and wished with all his might. "I wish that I was home," he said, and there was a flash of light. At once he was back home again. His feet were soaking wet. "I wished and it came true," he said. "It's the best wish I've made yet."
Brian, that's great. How did you come up with the character of Shamrock Sean?
Well, that was really through no design of my own, as I say. My daughter got the little leprechaun, and that was a reason how I came to be. And as I say, the end of the story was just something that I had to come up with on the spur of the moment. But the funny thing is that whenever I actually told the story to my daughter, my wife said to me, "You've got to write that down, you've got to remember that, because she's going to ask you for that story again tomorrow night." So when I went downstairs to write the story out, it came out of my head and onto the paper in poetic form, because I write a bit of poetry and I like poetry, so it's just the way it came out of my head, and as I wrote it down, the words just seemed to go. They weren't perfect. I mean, there was no finished product, but there was certainly the beginnings of a poem there whenever I wrote it down.
Did you have any experience of writing in the past, Brian?
Well, apart from school, obviously, and apart from work, but generally speaking, I only wrote poems for my own entertainment, and it was really just for the fun of things, to put things down on paper. But I've always had a sort of a lyrical in my head, so things always come out as poems as opposed to writing. I'm not a very good story writer, but I would write a lot of poetry.
And how many stories of Shamrock Sean have you written?
Well, they're probably in the region of about 12 altogether, completed ones. There's bits and pieces of others as well, but generally speaking there's 12, although there's only 3 published in book form at the moment.
And when you come up with an idea, how long does it take to write a story?
Well, once I get an idea about what he's going to do, and I put it down on paper and I started, it could take, it could take a long time. I could get the bones of it in probably maybe a couple of hours, but generally speaking, you go back and you work on it. You look for rhymes, you look for words that are going to fit better, you look for sentences that are going to run the right length. So there's a wee bit of work involved after that. So it could take days, it could take weeks. I might set it aside and not go back to it for a long time. But generally speaking, the idea is there very, very quickly.
Now, Roald Dahl very famously wrote in a shed at the bottom of his garden. Do you have a special writing place, Brian?
No, well, don't tend to lock myself in the attic or anything like that there to write the stories. In fact, generally speaking, I would probably write them at the dining room table as a rule, but I could get the idea anywhere, and whenever I get an idea, I would just jot it down on a piece of paper as soon as I get the idea, because as quick as it's in there, it can go out again. So it's very important, I think, that when you get an idea, you get it down on paper as quick as possible.
What do you enjoy most about writing?
Well, I think it's just putting it down on paper and being able to share it with people. I mean, I'm delighted that I can share my stories and my children's stories with children all over Northern Ireland, and in fact all over the world. I've had letters from children in Denver, in America, saying that they love the adventures of Shamrock Sean. So it's just the fact that someone else can enjoy the fact that I enjoy writing.
Now, you very kindly offered, Brian, to read us another one of Sean's exciting adventures today. What's this one called?
Well, this is probably my favourite story, and it's called Shamrock Sean Goes Fishing.
Great, can we hear a little bit?
Certainly, and again, I'd be delighted to read this one too. Shamrock Sean Goes Fishing. Shamrock Sean went fishing down by the river's edge. His rod was just a little stick he found beside the hedge. To it he tied a piece of string, and that would be the line. His hook was just a safety pin, but that would do just fine. He put the stick between two stones, and he fixed it firm and tight. Then he lay down in the summer sun and waited for a bite. After many hours of waiting, the rod began to twitch. Shamrock Sean thought to himself, "This must be one big fish. Or could it be a heavy boot? Or might it be a rag?" But then he saw the safety pin had hooked a leather bag. He opened up the bag and could not believe his eyes, for it was full of precious gems. What a great surprise! He put his hand into the bag and moved it all about. He found a note and trembled as he read the message out. "Whoever finds my little bag must not remove one gem, or I, the evil river witch, will cast a spell on them." Now, Shamrock Sean is honest, and he closed the bag up tight, and he threw it back into the stream with all his strength and might. It hit the water with a splash, and he fell upon the ground. But then a big fish grabbed his foot and dragged him river-bound. "Let me go," cried Shamrock Sean. He flapped his arms and screamed. Then suddenly he woke up. It had all been just a dream. On the soft grass, in the sun, upon the bank so steep, he'd rolled into the river when he'd fallen fast asleep. He crawled out of the water. The rod began to twitch. "Oh no," he cried as he ran home. "Here comes the river witch."
Thank you, Brian, for sharing such charming stories with us all today.
Thank you,
and I know everyone will be very excited to hear what exciting adventures Sean gets up to next. But perhaps you might be interested in a little help or advice from our own Newsdesk viewers. What do you think that Sean will get up to next? Perhaps you would like to send him on an adventure to an exotic place or visit a cold land. Who would you like him to meet? Maybe you would like to send him back in time. We are giving you 1 week to send in your best ideas using the send a comment section below this video. And then we'll ask Brian to pick the best ones. The 3 people whose ideas he chooses will receive a copy of Shamrock Sean's books. So, get your thinking caps on and send us in your best ideas. We hope you all enjoyed the adventures of Shamrock Sean, and until next time, bye-bye. Oh, thank you.